And it would make sense to be good. I think you're saying that now. This is why it's. Thank you for letting us know that. I'll control.
This is
Alice, was she coming?
as far as I know, I haven't heard from her this morning. Had to give her just a minute or go ahead.
We have one more minute here. Allison was supposed to be on her way, but we'll just go ahead and open the meeting.
Okay. So our first order of business will be budget presentation, recommended budget. So we'll go through that. I think this is even the seventh meeting maybe about the budget. So I think we've spent a lot of time on this year's budget. And, we talk about this every year. The budget is always a challenge every year with the wants, needs, and of course, revenues to pay for it. This year has been an interesting budget. We all could agree with that. It has been I think nothing short of a miracle that we've got this thing together, how we've got it together. And so let me go through this real quick. How about you do it for me? Just some good pictures, photos of what we did this current year. All right, so the budget, this is the most important thing council does basically annually, is to approve our operating budget for us to finance the year to come. This is the vision of the council and reflects the needs of the community. Next. Budget this year, $19.5 million. That is down considerably from the previous or the existing year we're in, which was adopted at just over $22 million. There is no property tax increase recommended in this year's budget. We have a 3% cost of living for full-time and part-time employees. We're adding 4 full-time new positions and a part-time position. The waste reduction fee will be increasing by $3 per month, going to $8 per month. The water rates are increasing by 15%, although you will see that is, I think those are just based on fees alone. However, as we've talked about, we're going to be getting rid of the bond fee this year. So that rate actually is going to go down quite a bit for folks. They're going to see about a 91-cent increase a month for the average user. And then major capital expenditures, very, very light this year. Some street paving. We do have some golf course equipment in here, although we'll get to that. And I think I've got some exciting news to let you know about here shortly about the golf course and the equipment. But that's what's in there now. And we've got 2 police vehicles and public safety generator.
Ask on that, since you've got the public safety generator, the generator that we have at the public safety building, that went down because basically the water system made an automatic cutoff, but that I've heard that is the Bingham has got that going, that running.
That generator is not sufficient enough to run that whole building. It just runs a piece of it. So that's the intention of getting another generator that will run the entire building.
The to add to that one? or
That, well, this would be a newer one that would plug in is our goal. Plug-in generator that can be moved.
Place at 15,000, fire had 15.
15, yeah,
And so you're looking at a 30,000 to get this.
That's correct.
That building would be completely operational.
that's correct.
Without Duke power,
That's correct.
30,000.
That is correct, Mr. Mayor. All right, townwide budget, $19,569,250. As you can see, general fund, 11.7 million. Fire service fund, 3.3, water fund, 2 point, I think that's 8. I may need glasses. Planning and development, 784, stormwater fund, 378, and some remaining funds at 420. That would include POW bill, police forfeiture funds, things of that nature. Next. Budget comparison. I think this is important to look at. 22% is what we're down from the amended budget we are in this year. The adopted budget will be down 22% from the amended budget we are currently working on. That's pretty staggering. I will say, City of Asheville's budget, Buncombe County's budget, Weaverville's budget are all increasing. I do know that. They are all asking or proposing a property tax increase as well. So even though I think it's important, we're not proposing a property tax increase. The county is, so your tax bills will increase based on the county property tax. Next. These are our major funds that we work with throughout the year. General fund, which is most of our operations. You saw that was over $11 million. That includes most everything except fire, planning and development, and the water fund. I know this is tiny, but this is just another nice chart that shows, where we are, what our requests have been, actuals from 2023, 24, and then where we are in this amended budget currently this year. Our fire department summary. This one will have this is one of the new positions we are adding as a firefighter. If you recall, this would make C shift whole, if you will. We have been getting by with some part-time folks on that shift, whereas the A and B shift have the full staffing needed. We were not able to do that in this year's budget. We cut that one fire position. So this is to make the C shift whole. Not much capital in the fire department budget this year. It's just not money there to do it. Next. Planning and development fund, 784, 300. So the planning and development fund that is separated out. We have to keep separate the revenue we take in from building permits. Those all have to be used in this department. They cannot be spread out through the general fund. They have to be used to fund this department. So that's why the planning and development fund sets separate. That's 784, 300 this year. And for that department, we did make the part-time building inspector full-time in this proposed budget.
Your other finance sources, that's down, looks like almost 600. And where does that money come from?
Other financing sources? That is like, so the technology fee, part of that goes into the planning department when we charge for these permits, we're able to charge a technology fee, and that's where your other revenue comes in for that department.
And is that much money?
Mm-hmm.
Over $500,000.
$500,000. Where are you looking?
Well, it looks like on other financing sources, it says 930 is what you had an amended budget for this 2025, and then it drops to 355.
Those are grants. That's what those are for.
Well, that's what I was asking.
Yes, I'm sorry. I was looking at the bottom lines. Yeah, those are grant funds. Yep. Water fund at little over 2.8 million this year. As you'll recall, as we've talked, Asheville will be going up. This is the second consecutive year on our wholesale water purchases. That is going up another substantial amount. Last year, I think it was 31 31%. This year it is 33%. And next year it will probably be another 33%. They have 3 years consecutive that they are raising the wholesale rates in order to fund, I think, a $300 million capital improvement plan that they're doing for their water system. So that's why those are going up. And we've talked about that, through this budget process and through our discussions about being more resilient and looking maybe to drill some more wells so we don't have to rely as heavily on other folks. Revenues. Revenues are down this year. You can see that pretty substantially from 2025. That being said, when the interest rates are high, we're happy, I think, as a town, because we get a lot of good money on our investments. But when those start dropping, it's better, I think, for the consumer because they get cheaper interest rates, but it's worse for our investments. So that has dropped to some extent. We're also not using near as much unassigned fund balance to balance this budget this year. So that revenue is not there. I think last year we did about 1.6 million, and this year it's about $400,000 to balance the budget from unassigned fund balance. But this takes, this shows your ad valorem, which is your property tax for your property and your vehicles. This also is sales tax, permits and fees that we take in throughout the year. Property tax is almost 50% of our revenue. Property tax rate, we talk about that every year, about raising or keeping it the same. Where are we with that? As I mentioned, there is no requested increase this year, or recommended, 32.1 is what it'll be, as it has been the past couple of years. That's just to show you where we've been in the past 12 years or so with property tax and where we are now. I will say that next year, the property tax reval will happen for the next year's budget from the county. Property tax base growth is really what this is. We're thinking we're going to see a substantial decrease probably next year due to the damage caused by Helene. So these are the projected numbers for the property tax base growth. As you can see, they've been really, we had some couple big years there in 2020, 2024. And now we're going to feel that effect, I think, soon. Next.
That's an increase on growth or a decrease in
base. Yeah, tax base. Like the amount that is available for us to charge our rate to.
Like the houses along the river that are gone.
Yeah.
That's primarily where it's going to come from.
Yeah. And any steep slope issues you may have had somewhere that took out houses. This is our sales tax revenue comparison over the past 4 years or so. We've been doing good all year. Yeah, I think we've been concerned about that. It was a little light September and October, and now we're trending higher than we've trended the past 3 years. So that's amazing. That just shows that people are still coming to Black Mountain and spending money, and that's a good thing.
And to Buncombe County.
And to Buncombe County, of course, yes. Revenue changes. Waste reduction fee would be a $3 increase. I mentioned that a few minutes ago. That is estimated to give us about $153,000 in revenue for the sanitation department. In order to make that department self-sufficient, we would need to charge around $18 a month. And right now we are recommending we charge $8. As I mentioned, the water fees, on average, that is a 15%. However, with the bond fee coming off, that is going to be a minimal increase that the average user will see per month, again, around 91 cents. And that revenue, we think, is going to get us about $285,000 extra for the water fund. Next. I mentioned this a minute ago. Our revenue sources, mostly property tax, 48.5%, almost 50%. And then sales tax, of course. So property tax is about 5.7 million roughly. Sales tax is about 2.6. So when you look at those, add those two numbers together, that is the majority of our revenue source for our general fund. And you do have your other smaller sources, excuse me, that come in from investments, miscellaneous revenue, different things of that nature. Expenditures. So I mentioned this a minute ago. Our requested or recommended budget is $19,569,250. The amended budget we are currently working on, just for reference, is almost 25.5 million. So that's down $6 million. Next. For those that might want to know where their money goes, here's a little dollar bill we've sliced up in different categories. The biggest portion of your dollar goes to public safety at 41 cents. Your next biggest portion is water resources, and then public works. And then it goes down the line. Of course, general government, parks and recreation, 10 cents, community economic development, 4 cents, and stormwater, a whopping 2 pennies. Yep. And that is your recommended budget. Now, I'm happy to answer questions if you have any on the budget. If you do not, I would ask that, I guess now would be the fine time to call for a public hearing for the July meeting, which is July 9th. Excuse me, June 9th.
We've come a long way over the last couple months with this budget. I feel like we're in a pretty good place to off the public hearing and get public feedback, additional public feedback. But I appreciate staff's work on all the cuts that we've made.
Yeah, I think I probably should mention this. It'll be in my budget message. So we'll have the budget ready today and on the website for folks to view if they have interest, as well as a copy here in town hall for the next, until June 9th. And I will say, our fund balance, unassigned fund balance, is struggling a little, as you can imagine. With the recommended budget, we're going to be probably around between 19.5%, 20% going into the new fiscal year, if it is approved as is. Now, we do have an internal policy that we would keep that above 30. I think we've talked about that, and we'll need to adjust that maybe in the June meeting or shortly thereafter. But we're going to unfortunately probably have to keep it in that range for a little while, just with waiting on FEMA reimbursements, waiting on money to come in. There's just no way to make that grow anymore until we can get more funds in. So that will be I think a monthly conversation, probably, or bi-monthly, as that fluctuates throughout the year, coming years, honestly.
I do think it'd be appropriate at the same time that we're looking at the budget to go ahead and address the internal requirement. So I would propose that we have that on the June agenda.
And then I forgot to mention this. I have this paper in front of you. With our budget this year, and this will be in the recommended budget, we always adopt our fee schedule. And that's the time of year we adopt our fee schedule for things like, swimming pool fees, trash fees, rental fees, building permits. I mean, the whole gamut of our fee process we do. So this is in front of you. So there are a few adjustments. And we've got some options here, 5%, 8%, and 10% increases. And these are specifically related to planning and development, would be, building permits, things of that nature, planning fees.
So from the figures that you showed up there from permits and fees, what was that based on any of these three?
That is actually the fees in the revenue is kind of just flat right now. So it's not based on any of these.
So you're asking, planning would like to see an increase.
Correct. Anything that increase, of course, will just be extra funds. It's not been budgeted for that would come in that way.
You got some estimate as to what the totals would be in each of these categories?
Well, if
You've got three things down here at the bottom.
so right now, if you look at, I may not be understanding your question totally, but $1,800 an average 3-bedroom, 2-bath home for a permit fee right now. Okay, everything. Planning and development, building permit fees. If we went up 5%, it's $1,890. If you went up 8%, it's $1,944, and 10%, it's $1,980.
Yeah. I can see that, but the thing is, in this fee schedule here, there's lots of fees that are not related to a new home build.
That's correct.
So my question is, how much extra money do you think would be coming in on those different percentage increases?
I don't have that number. Happy to get it to you. It'll just be a guess, right? We have no idea how many subdivisions we're going to do in a given year. We have no idea how many permits we're going to do. We can base it off historical data, but it'll be a guess.
Going off historical.
Sure.
Because, you've got things in here, retaining wall permits, fence permit, zoning permit, sign permit review. I'm just trying to get some idea of what we're talking about in terms of, I realize it's speculation, but at least some type of figure.
Happy to get that.
I imagine some of these we have a little more averages around and some would be more variable.
Sure.
Josh, I might suggest, with what we have budgeted being the flat rate, we just, quickly calculate 5, 8, and 10. That'd probably be a good ballpark because that flat rate is based off last couple years.
Well, do we have any motion? Call for a public hearing for the budget June meeting.
I'll make the motion that we're going to call for public hearing and then council meeting.
Any discussion? Not all in favor?
Aye.
Also too. Council Lady Alice said something about it to review this percentage. Do you want to make that in form of motion or just ask Josh to put that on the agenda?
Happy to put it on the agenda.
I'm fine either way. I'll probably need to vote on it, but
Happy to have it on there.
So it will be on the public note. It said, we meaning past boards had set this at 30%. As you heard Josh say, it's around 20%. The state recommends 8%. But there is no set minimum that has to be had in there. The state certainly will be following us closely if we don't have 8%. But considering the damages and all the hassles that we've gone through and the amount of money that we're going to have to raise to go ahead and address the problems, I don't think we're going to be on their radar, at least not this coming year.
Let's hope not. If we are, so will many others.
All right, well, had the motion and voted on it then. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next, we're going to talk about golf course. Brent and Jerry, come on up, guys.
Center, buddy.
Oh. All right. We're gonna go through this about 20 slides or so. I think you're gonna, I'm gonna go through it. You're gonna get some exciting news, I think, at the end. So bear with us as we get through some of the earlier parts of the presentation, but we've got some good news as of yesterday afternoon. Timing couldn't be better. So bear with us. Purpose of this meeting, we're going to go through a couple things. Primary damages of the golf course. I want everybody to know what we're working with. We're going to talk about repairs we've made to date, and I want to let you know that we've spent more money on the golf course repairs than we've spent on anything else in this town since the hurricane besides critical infrastructure. We're going to understand our remaining needs, and then we're going to review, which is very important, financial and regulatory conditions that we face. Okay, keep going. All right, so for some clarification, closing the golf course has never been discussed or considered. Want to make sure that's clear. The operation suffered $2 million in damages as well as the course. Those are damage inventory estimates from folks at FEMA. Right, that's where we get these numbers from. I mentioned the third bullet already. Next. Equipment insurance notification timelines. All right, so most of the equipment we have was leased equipment. Y'all may or may not know that. But I think the folks at home or the folks that view this later, it's important for them to know this information. This equipment was part of our inland marine insurance policy. We were told by our insurance carrier the inland marine claims are paid out after flood claims are paid out. If you recall, in the beginning, we had numerous conversations, and this is one of the reasons why updates are so hard to give you, because things change at the flip of a coin. All right, that's how this works, how this has been working since September 27th. At that point in time, the insurance company, they hired an adjuster called Sedgwick, came out, did research for many towns, looking at the damages, putting in the figures. We were told at that time $5 million was what our damage was, and we had exceeded our claims, and that's all we were going to get was $5 million, period. Well, I don't think the League of Municipalities Insurance was very happy with maybe the job Sedgwick was doing or the amounts that were coming in. So they hired a different firm to come in and redo everything for everybody, not just the town of Black Mountain, every other town that is part of the league insurance pool. And there are a lot of them. Flood claim totals were then determined to be $3.4 million, which is less than $5 million. At that point, we learned they would pay for that lease and pay and honor the inland marine claims, and they would be covered. So at that point, we're having a party, right? Because we're thinking we're stuck paying this lease. That being said, we've also spoken with the insurance company, and the lease we've been paying since September, we will be getting reimbursed for that money. So there's another $80-some thousand we're going to get. So that's great news. Review of damages. Just real quick, new equipment costs. This is why we can't afford to buy new equipment. That's the price per piece of equipment. So a brand new mower for a fairway mower is $100,000. A rough mower is over $100,000. And we need multiples of these. That's why we lease the equipment. Next, greens mower, $57,000. Spray rig, $70,000. Maintenance building. All right, so now we're going to talk about some regulatory issues that we've got. So this building, the maintenance building, was placed in the non-encroachment area without a no-rise study, which is prohibited, cannot be done. This building was placed in the 90s. This is obviously in the floodplain. It's in a non-encroachment zone. We don't have a floodway for this stream. It's called a limited detail study. And the non-encroachment zone is a certain distance from the center line of the stream on both sides of the creek. This building falls within the non-encroachment zone. The building is substantially damaged. We followed our FEMA required methodology that we did for every single structure in this town using the FEMA calculator. This building is substantially damaged. I tell you that because FEMA Region 4 staff have been here multiple times looking at our permits and wanting to know what we're permitting and where we're permitting things to make sure that the rules are being followed. So here are repairs made to date to the Black Mountain Golf Course. Just over $138,000 worth. I'm not going to read every one of these. But you've got different things, right? Cart paths, bridges, some pipes, irrigation repairs. We had to order panel for the irrigation, motor refurbishment, which has been the longest process. And pro shop repairs were made as well. Financing future repairs. Next. All right. So this was in our proposal of transferring money from the water fund. We are regulated by, of course, North Carolina general statutes. And if we transfer money from the water fund, it is going to have some serious consequences. And I'm going to tell you what those are in just a second. I'm not reading that next. Also, another statute that talks about using utility or public enterprise service money to fund other operations. Next. So this is an email from the School of Government. We of course, always are asking other people if our thought process is correct when we look at some of these things, to get advice from the professionals at the School of Government. This is an email back from Kara Malonzi with the School of Government, and just talking about transferring money from the water fund to the general fund. If you do this, you will be unable to get future grants or loans in the water fund. You won't be able to get any more grants or loans for the water fund. Also, the LGC will be sniffing. They don't like to see this happen, which has the potential to affect our credit rating and ability to borrow money in the future.
Josh, can you explain that a little bit more? And my understanding is that's because the water fund is supposed to be, you're not supposed to be making a lot of money. So
Water
it's supposed to
fund
be
is-
funding the general fund.
Water fund is a public utility, and the water fund is a standalone fund that needs to operate within itself based on user fees. And mixing and matching money from different funds is not recommended and not something that is normally practiced. It is it is seen as you're not doing what you need to be doing in your town to fund your general fund. So you're using money from your public enterprise to fund that.
And if we were to have lost the ability to get grant funding or loans, for example, this most recent $3 million,
I think that's on the next slide.
okay.
We would not have been able to get that money. That's correct.
That was critical for us to get our.
Very critical. Next. So we need Department of Environmental Quality funds in our water fund. We need to have those. We have to have those to be able to finance and do capital projects in our water fund. It is too expensive and too unfair to the customer to charge exorbitant amount of rates to try and fund our capital projects. That's why we go after grant funds a lot in the water fund, or loans water fund. It's a lot of, I mean, we're paying off a bond now that has been on the books for a number of years, and that was for, water and sewer. As of last week, we were approached by DEQ regarding additional funding opportunities for our water fund and stormwater. And we are going to a meeting next week for that same reason. So they are wanting to give out money, and I would hate for us not to be able to do that. As I mentioned, we can't absorb the cost associated with our existing projects and system needs. We just cannot do it. Next. Insurance requirements from our league insurance reps. Happy to have volunteers on the course, would love it, but we need to make sure we're doing it in the right way. We can't afford to be liable for anything that happens at all. There's $2 million in the fund balance right now. That's what it is. It's all the money we have, $2 million in the savings account. Using town maintained roads for cart pass, not a good idea. Liability, unsafe. Next. We spoke with our risk consultant, risk control consultant from our league insurance. If you're using carts to cross roads, it's fine. If you're using carts on the roads to operate for a distance, then that's an issue. Again, we don't have the ability to fund anything if something should happen. We cannot do that. Next. Going back to volunteers, happy to have volunteers on the course. I think we would welcome that. We just need to do it in an organized way and make sure folks are aware of the ramifications. If you get hurt as a volunteer, we do not cover you. We do. We do. That's correct.
So it wouldn't be hard to.
No, not at all.
that kind of paperwork.
Not at all. Next. Available funding sources. So as we've talked about this since October, FEMA small projects, FEMA large projects, both of those are available to us, and we are going through both of those processes as we speak. Insurance, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, the lease equipment is paid off. And the claims on the insured items that we owned. Of course, we have gotten some insurance money in, but not everything yet. So we're still waiting on insurance funds to come in. Donations and fundraising, happy to do that. I mean, I think that is an option. I know someone mentioned Veterans Park the other night in our meeting, and we got lucky, the Babe Ruth folks, that organization somehow, I talked about miracles during that storm, and that was one of those miracles. Most of that work close to $1 million was paid for with private donations. We paid for the fencing and most everything else was paid for with private donations. Fund balance, we've talked about that. Cash flow loan program. That is something we've also talked about, but I want to let you know kind of where we are with that one. The second round of that is now open. The state treasurer's office emailed us Monday. And of course, we submitted immediately for the second round. They've got about $50 million left, and I am hopeful that we will get a few $1 million to be able to use for things like the golf course, if that's what y'all want to do, or other things that we may need. So that we will find out more after June 6th. That is when that round is complete and they start making the decisions. And then lastly, possible bank financing. If all other options are exhausted, that is an option we could pursue. Although I don't think we're going to need to do that, as you'll find out in just a couple of minutes. That will need the approval of the local government commission, who approves all the debt for counties and towns in this state over a certain amount. Next. Course reopening strategy. We've talked about this, I think, last month. We had a plan in place. There is a plan in place currently. We have not moved forward with the driving range. That has not happened at this point. We are working to open the back 9 holes, which I'll let Brent and Jerry talk here momentarily, but that is a reality that is going to happen in the coming weeks. Okay. We're actively looking for used golf mowers and equipment. Brent and Jerry went down and we had a bite on some, went down and looked and outside of Greensboro, and we'll take more work, I think, than it's worth. Jerry and Brent can talk more about that if y'all want to talk about that. However, good news. Now I'm getting to the good news. There is now an equipment lease available for us. We can get an equipment lease. Jerry talked to those folks yesterday. It's not every single piece we need, but it is quite a few pieces and will be a game changer. Also, with that being said, FEMA, we found out yesterday, will cover the cost of a temporary structure to house the equipment. So we don't have to do anything. We don't have to get storage units. We don't have to worry about that. We have got the ability now to get a temporary structure that will be paid for. So that's, I think the end of that is the great news, right? The lease is available. We don't have to buy used equipment. That is most of the time someone else's problem that we're dealing with. And with new equipment, we've got the $100,000 now in the budget, which I feel pretty confident that's going to cover that lease pretty easily, because it's going to be less equipment than we had in the past. The remaining amount of equipment we think will be ready in October, according to the John Deere folks. What's next? All right, so we're going to submit a FEMA small project. We're almost there for that. We're continuing to look for used equipment that fits our needs. If there's something out there that is a good price and in good shape, we're going to look at picking that up if we need to. I mentioned the cash flow loan program, volunteers and fundraising, and the newest information is the new lease and the temporary structure that FEMA will cover.
What can we submit as a small project?
I'm going to call or look at Jessica for that answer.
So the FEMA small project for the golf course will include the $138,000 expended to date, and it will also include the bridges and cart path repairs on the front 9, working off estimates to obligate those funds so we can draw those down. So we're getting the updated estimates on that. Because costs can be so volatile, the original estimates that we pulled down for the FEMA damage inventory, we're just going to update those, make sure they're nice and tidy. And then those documents will be ready to present to FEMA to for that project.
And for the public, can you walk through the small project process quickly? The abbreviated version.
The abbreviated version is that small projects are less than $1 million. They cannot be amended, so your estimates are tight. And if you go over, then that is your problem. And so they do create a financial risk to some extent. If they're a construction project and you run into something that could not have been identified before, like a large boulder in the ground, you can go through an amendment process, which can be time consuming, but is there. So a FEMA small project Typically you want to expend about 75% of those costs up front if you can to reduce your financial risk. So you're working off actuals and not estimates. Will not always be the case, but is preferred. And then your documentation is submitted to FEMA and those funds are allocated and drawn down. So instead of being reimbursed along the way, if you don't get to choose if a project is large or small, so you will end up doing some projects as a small that you would prefer to be a large just to reduce financial risk. But it is a more straightforward and faster process than a large project. It could take us 3-6 years to get reimbursed on large projects. The small projects are cut, those checks are cut within, 3-ish months if things are going smoothly.
And, for timeline, I know it's still, there's a lot of variables, but like, what are we looking at for these bridges, for example?
I hope to have all of our paperwork together by the end of next week and start formulating those projects with our FEMA team. So that's not just us, that's also our PDMG and the folks at FEMA to get these projects developed and approved in the system. All the paperwork has to be submitted and viewed, but it is still a much more straightforward process than a large project. And I don't want to speak too tight. I would hope that we would have that check in hand within about 3 months.
So the time frame you're looking at is 3 months. You're speaking about to get the money. That now, how does that relate to we're speaking specifically for bridges now?
That is included in that particular.
So if we have somebody that will do the bridges, we can pull that out. And just let this individual do the bridges so that we don't have to wait 3 months.
I'm not going
To
to
get-
go
to
through
get the
procurement right
bridges.
now, but we have estimates that meet the requirements of those bridges. We have to go through that formal process
Why can't we pull those out?
because the golf bridges need to meet the current code and standard for the golf course.
Okay, well, that's not a problem for them to meet them. We just get someone that'll do them. And we don't have to submit FEMA and we don't have to wait for 3 months.
We don't
We can
necessarily,
get the bridges done.
we don't necessarily have to wait for 3 months anyway. If we're able to get that cash flow on, we can do it. Do it right now,
And just get reimbursed.
just get reimbursed later.
Okay, so the bridges could be done now, but we don't have to wait.
What was there, if we want FEMA reimbursement for it, they have to be done to their, but we've got money, we can do that now and get reimbursed, absolutely.
Or the other option would be, we just get the bridges done. And it doesn't cost us anything.
As long as they meet code, I'm ready to, let's do that, start tomorrow.
Just want to make sure that that's clear. Yes.
And for clarity, we're talking about someone donating time and materials, is that,
Correct.
okay.
Absolutely.
And so just for general awareness, if folks do want to volunteer or have things to donate, labor, supplies, whatever, what's the best process for that?
Probably to reach out to myself or Brent.
If it's specific to the golf course?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Because, on those bridges, they'll have to pull permits and whatever has to be followed, but if someone wants to do it.
But I'm assuming those bridges don't fall into a category that you would be the same structural degradation or supervision as a bridge on a road.
Shouldn't be as intense, but you probably will still require potentially Army Corps permits. It just depends. Happy to have that discussion with whoever though. That's it. Next, all right.
One of the things I wanted to mention was that, you were talking about how that, we will be getting a check from the, insurance for $8,000 for the past lease payments.
That's correct. I don't know when, but yes, that's good news.
Yeah. And then we also had, because of the actions that the board took Monday night, we were able to put another $100,000 back into the fund balance from the Hemphill project.
That's correct.
And so now we're on the lease agreement for the equipment, the amount of money. In the original proposal that I was talking about, I was figuring $450,000. I revised that down to $250,000. Mainly because of the fact that we could have storage units and a few other things, some free bridge repair. And, so right now, it looks to me like we've already got 180,000 that we could put towards that without affecting the fund balance. And therefore, we could move forward to getting the.
Well, at least it's a game
of
changer.
course.
At least it's a game changer.
Yeah.
A game
Oh,
changer.
absolutely.
Because without that, you're struggling.
So Josh, with the lease, what's the time frame on finding equipment? Because if I remember correctly, you said it was kind of here or.
I'm gonna look at Jared and let him answer that question if you don't mind.
So most of our major equipment are 2 fairway mowers and the 2 rough mowers. They actually have in stock. So if the board approved it, I can make the call. It'd probably be, a couple weeks. Not exactly sure their time frame, but it is in-house. The other equipment, the greens mowers, the spray rig, the sand trap rake, would be here roughly October. They usually try to shoot it a month later than what it would be, so it could be even sooner, but they kind of want to cover all bases. So our large equipment could be here, I would say probably within a month.
Just keep in mind too, that, that equipment isn't in stock very often.
Yeah,
So
Exactly.
this would be something that would need to happen pretty quickly. If we're gonna actually get it.
Yeah.
That was gonna be my point. I mean, if we're gonna lease, I don't think this is something that we need to wait on.
No, we need to do it right
I
now
think we need
today.
to do it now.
Yeah, because if we wait and lose the opportunity to get, like I said, the fairway mowers, then it would be an order, then it could be October, the same with them. So the sooner we did this would be better.
Well, so with the equipment that they have in stock or they have available for us now, what would that allow us to do?
So right now, we're even at a struggle just trying to keep the back nine maintained. It's taken us almost a month just to get caught back up and maintained. That would definitely allow us to keep it maintained on a regular basis and would free up some time where we could kind of start working on the front. Because the front's going to be a lengthy process to get it ready to be open. So the 2 fairway mowers and a rough mower would definitely be a help and it'd be a step forward to getting the front nine. I'm not gonna say ready for this year, it probably more springtime of next year. Because we've lost our growing season, we're fixing to come out of it, fixing to come into the higher temperatures. So we're coming from, we're mowing right now about 3 inches. Our fairways are normally mowed 5/8 of an inch. So if we try to take that down too quick, yes, we've actually, some of the areas on the backside, we actually did kind of damage just trying to get caught up. But it was early enough in the season, everything's still growing good, we're starting to grow out. But now we're starting to get into the higher temperatures, lower humidity. So, but it would allow us to focus on the front and like I said, step it down, in that process that we need.
So if we're looking at, if I'm understanding you correctly, if we're looking at next year, do we have the equipment to maintain the greens? Because that, to me, that would be really important.
Yes, we do have the equipment to maintain the greens and my plan is for this summer is to keep the front 9 greens growed up a little bit. To help cut costs on fungicide, water, to keep them safe, keep them healthy. Then as we come in, there's some practices we can do. I can drop the height down, mow them a little bit. We can top dress them to help bring the height to where we mow at. But everything, the greens will definitely be maintained throughout this year. Because of course, the greens are the most expensive part and that's our money maker. So they will still, we're still spraying and we're still taking care of them, still be watering them.
And you're probably asking that because the lease is only showing those 4 pieces of equipment. So
Yeah.
right now we're borrowing some equipment from John Deere. Luckily, Jerry's got a good relationship with them and they're letting us borrow this for a short time. This isn't forever, but we might be able to possibly rent them until they could, fulfill the lease.
I know we're really only operating 9. Have we approached them? Maybe.
About equipment, yeah, so they're operated with it's a bigger company that operates them, so they transfer their equipment around different places. So they found a location for what equipment they weren't using to go to.
So what I'm hearing, and is the fact that we're not gonna open up the front nine this year.
Safely, no.
We can shave it
Yeah,
down
we,
more.
I can do it, and if y'all
But
send
I
me
mean,
going.
but it doesn't have to be done in one day.
Yeah,
I mean, you've got, for the original proposal I was talking about, mid-July. Even the 1st of August, that gives 2.5 months.
but we also lost our,
Slowly.
growing season for healthy growth, for healthy turf. Now, like I said, we're coming into the higher temperatures, so we stand a greater risk of doing more damage than good.
Here's the other thing.
And we don't have the equipment or the staff.
The staff has forever been a problem and lack thereof. And, now we got 2 full-time staff on maintenance trying to operate that place with 2 guys from First Incorporated who don't even have a driver's license.
Yes.
So, these are things that are going to have to be addressed if we're going to operate an 18-hole golf course properly, to the way that everyone behind us wants it.
Yeah.
But it's not
operated.
gonna take a year to find people to operate on the golf course.
It will if
That's
we
what-
don't increase what we pay.
Yeah.
Well,
First,
that's all part of it. I mean, if the golf course has a mandate from the town board to say, let's get this thing open, then you would proceed on and get these people. And you may have to raise the rates. We may have to raise the rates that we're
no
going
doubt, no
to
doubt.
compensate for the help that we gotta get.
Mhm.
But, there's enough time in here to get this course, when you speak about the growing season. Well, that's.
You also have to
I
remember too,
like to,
I know
we
there's,
can disagree, but I mean, the grass does not stop growing in June 1st.
but we're also not mowing your yard either. We're mowing heights that we're asking grass not to be maintained to. You mow your yard at 3 inches. You can go weeks without water. We can go 2 days without water. Just, hypothetically, and lose a $75,000 green. So like I said, I mean, if we got the call and you said you want this thing open in 2 weeks, we can shave it down, but then it's gonna cost a lot more to get everything back healthy.
Possibly, but the most important thing is the greens, and you've already said that the greens wouldn't be a problem.
Yes, like I said, I'm gonna keep them.
We can get the greens back to where they normally would be by the 1st of July.
No. Not by the 1st of July. And just really, and I know there's a Chick Henderson used to call him like a sidewalk superintendents, that like saying a lot of things, but I've talked with several other superintendents, past superintendents, and they're all like, you need to shoot for safely March, April. And like I said, that's people that has far greater knowledge than I have. But to be safe and to not lose greens or damage greens beyond the point, I would suggest spring. We can work on them through the season, but like I said, once we start getting into higher temperatures, lower humidity, we stand a great risk of damaging the greens.
Yeah.
And also, we talked about top dressing them in. One of the tools we lost was our reel grinder, which is very, very important. So with top dressing, I need to be able to grind reels almost daily. We don't have that option.
But we have that option with the city municipal.
Asheville Country Club told us that we could use theirs occasionally. It's not going to be a thing where we can take them over daily and grind our reels on their reel
And
grinder.
that
But it's
machine costs how much?
about 80,000 for a new one. We can get to use one for about half that.
Okay, so we've got this extra money that we could go ahead and buy that. If we wanted to, we could buy it tomorrow.
If we had a place to put it and work on equipment. There's a lot of factors
There's
that,
a lot of moving parts here.
so it's like,
But
you know.
moving part, but the main thing is to get these parts in these boxes checked.
mhm.
And this thing about having to go to FEMA to try to get a building, well, that's fine. But 3 containers, 2 to store the equipment, 1 to set up as a makeshift shop.
Yeah,
So
that's
it's
got
what
it.
it-
That comes with its own issues with fire code as
Yeah.
well, but,
A fire code.
if you're storing equipment with gas in it in metal containers, that's an issue. An issue.
Well, but an insurmountable issue.
Not at all.
That's just what I'm saying, that let's don't try to find reasons not to do it. Let's try to find ways to do it. That's what I've been trying to come up with for a couple of months now. Let's find ways to do this.
So if you put a reel grinder inside of a shipping container, you want to have HVAC, it's want to have
Exhaust.
ventilation.
Yep.
Because You got metal shavings going in there, if you're in a confined space. It was hard enough within our shop. And Josh has been in our shop before, doing real grinding. I mean, you're trying to eat lunch and, you're inhaling metal dust, which is, in my opinion, is a liability, but
Big one.
it's whatever. It's, we're trying to do the best. Like I said, the back nine is within a few weeks away of being opened. I still think it would be our best bet. Work towards the front, do it safely, do it smart, cost effective. But whatever, the board decides.
I think we're missing a great opportunity here to go ahead and get this course open back up. I know we would have problems and take some chances, but the people that I've talked to, and these are not just lawn mowers, the people that are doing their own grass. Yes, you have to be careful, but that's the reason why when I said, I didn't say open it up June 1st, I said open up mid-July. That gives you 8 weeks to slowly bring this grass down.
So whatever the board decides, that's the.
And we've got time in there to find personnel. I just hope the board would move to try to go ahead and see if we can not get this golf course open.
I want to commend y'all for a really amazing plan and for being able to put so much of this together. I think we've gotten a lot of good news today, so appreciate the updates. I think, there are always going to be parts of town that mean a lot to certain groups of folks, and I appreciate all of y'all that have come out and spoke and shared your concerns and your desires for the golf course. I think we do have a really good plan to get 9 holes open and have a process for getting back to 18 holes a year from now. We have a lot of priorities with storm damage in town, and I would encourage the rest of the council to try and phase some of this to meet all of the priorities that we have before us. I think, again, this is great progress with the golf course, and we have a lot of other needs in town as we continue to recover. So I think it'd be great to go ahead and get that leased equipment and stick with this plan of getting 9 holes open.
Keeping in mind that we're not taking money away from other parts of the town and the rehab that we're doing. This is its own special. We borrowed some money away from the fund balance, which we just heard. We've probably got 180,000 there, so that we're not really putting any other project in jeopardy, whether it's police or fire or public service or whatever. It's just a matter of just moving ahead and just.
I'm not sure that's
not true.
I'm not sure that's true. If we're pulling an additional,
true.
the $100,000, for example, that we transferred back in last week, that's $100,000 that we couldn't put towards the senior center, for example, right? If we tied it up in the golf course.
We've got 2.4 million in the fund balance. And 2.4 million.
2.2.
The fund balance is there to go ahead and to help on rainy day situations where we've.
Absolutely, which we have pulled a lot of money from else to do that.
And if we go ahead and, so if we have 2.4 million in there now, or we had 1.5 million in there, is there really going to be a difference to the town? Are we in any financial bad situation?
I mean, there was a reason why the previous board set the fund balance at 30%, right? Is for moments like this when we need to tap into the rainy day fund. Right?
Exactly.
We have a lot of expenses and a lot of priorities. The golf course, I would love to see the golf course open tomorrow. I absolutely would. I think I can speak for most everybody here, maybe everybody here. I'm glad that we are moving forward with the back 9 immediately, and I hope that we continue to move forward with the front 9 rapidly as well. What's important to remember is that 2 months ago it wasn't the golf course that was getting a lot of attention, as the senior center, right? There are a lot of needs, very important needs, very expensive needs. That senior center is going to cost upwards of $500,000 probably to fix. you know, the rest of Veterans Park. Had met with people at Owen Bayreuth last week that are very concerned about the bathroom situation, right? You know, that's another very expensive thing. The problem is we do not have the funds right now to fix everything. We just don't. And we have to be strategic in the way we're spending our funds. And so throwing an extra $200,000 at this and an extra $200,000 at that is going to put us in a situation where we are in trouble. Right now, we're trying to be strategic about how we're doing that.
What is the trouble that you're saying that we would be in?
Where we're out of money.
We're not gonna spend $2.4 million. And we've got money coming in through this fiscal year.
With
So,
all due
but-
respect, hopefully we do not face another Hurricane Helene, but we do not know that there won't be other serious weather events. And I'm not interested in depleting what we have.
No one is saying depleting what we have. We're saying drawing down on it. As far as the senior citizen go, have you been in there to look at the basement?
Look, what I see.
So what I would like to see would be for us to go ahead and have somebody, a structural engineer, go in there and tell us exactly what we need.
And that's in the process of happening, right?
It's in the process of it. That could take another 5 months.
Hope not, but it could.
It could take that long. So, I mean, I just don't understand why we can't get a structural engineer, pay them, go in there, tell us what we got to do, and then we would know, instead of speculating, could it be 100,000, could it be 500, could it be 1 million? Then we would know. We need to know. We know what it's going to take for the golf course. This has been worked out. We know what it's going to take there. And it's not going to deplete that much money from. And then you've also got a revenue stream out of the golf course to pay the money back into the fund balance. If the course is open, you've got a revenue stream. So, I mean, from a business standpoint, why don't we get the revenue stream going?
You know, this revenue stream was last year $129,000. That's what it made, golf course. For that, I think it was about $10,000 the previous year.
Yeah.
And for that, I think it was in the red.
However, it made 125,000, and yet at the same time paid
That's correct.
for
Yeah,
all this lease equipment,
that's
all
correct.
this personnel that you would hire. So all those were taken care of.
And we're going to have to do that again.
Exactly, but
That's
that's what the golf course is there for, is to generate money, and it can generate money. Especially with the fact when you look that Broadmoor's down, it won't ever be open.
That's correct.
When you look at Muni, now that's only half, if they even get half the revenue they did last year. And we made $130,000 or $125,000 competing with those two entities, and now they're not there. We should be in a darn good situation business wise.
Well, and I think Brent and Jerry could chime in. You know, yes, I mean, we're going to make money, but you're limited in how many rounds you can put out there a day. I mean, it's right. I mean, you can only do so many rounds.
Of supply and demand are going to say the price should go up if what you're saying is true, and it should go up significantly if there's no competition. That's how that would work. That's how we would make more money. We're already turning 180, 200 rounds a day on weekends. That's as many rounds as you're going to put on that place, realistically. So you'd have to charge more to make more revenue. You know, the demand is there. The demand has been there, but you'd have to make the decision to charge more. Mhm. Which I'm all for.
Here.
Yes.
Great opportunity that we're missing here. Get this course open back up.
I mean, we're talking about opening back up, and
Mhm.
the question is it the back nine or is it the all 18? I mean, we've never not had the discussion about not opening it back up. But from what I've heard, and Brent, Jerry, don't let me put words in your mouth, but from what I've heard, comfortable opening the back nine. But given the time of year and the conditions, we might be doing more harm than good if we try to open the front nine. Am I phrasing that in the simplest terms?
You're correct, yes.
Okay. So,
You know, nobody wants the golf course open more than me and Brent.
Yeah.
And I've got 30 years vested at the golf course. You know, it's my life and blood. I spend more time there than I do at home. So, yeah, we want it open, but I want to do it where we're not, you know, create more damage.
right,
Then when it's open, you know, it's open near as perfect as it can be.
That's one question I was gonna ask. I am an avid golfer, so it's important to me. I'm
Mhm.
also about Mountain native, 7 generations. So I know about this golf course and I don't want to see it go. However, I'm not naive. And I also know that sometimes if you rush things to get things done just because,
Mhm.
you wind up doing more damage
Yes.
to what has already been done. You said something just a minute ago, you have 30 years experience. I have none. As far as what is considered for a golf course or what needs to be done. I too would like to see all 18 holes open. But is it feasible?
For this time frame, for this year, I don't see that it's feasible and not do it correctly, not do it safely. I mean, like I said, if the board decided this is the route we wanted to go, I would do my best with the staff that I have. But there's no guarantees what the condition of the course would be. Or, the condition of the front nine. The back nine, we was able, when the equipment come in, because the plan was going forth was to open the back nine. So that's where our attention and focus and dedication was to the back nine. So we were able through the last 6 weeks, to get the back nine ready. Like I said, I still have not mowed greens because we've not had the water, and I have showed Josh there is some
We have
issues.
water now.
The pumps are working. They will be back on site Friday. We will charge the system. We will set all of our pressures for the system to operate, and that will give us the time to check if we have any leaks or damages on the course that
So we still don't know if we have leaks or.
we don't know if we have leaks. They finished up Monday, but we were not here. We were, like I said, in Greensboro looking for equipment. So they had, of course, other golf course to go to, so they will not be back on site on Friday. So hopefully,
Friday this week.
yeah, Friday this week.
Tomorrow.
So hopefully everything will go good. We have no issues. The one thing I will have to do, we'll have water, but we have a controller that sends a signal to our satellite boxes. So once we have water, then I can call NSN, which holds our contract and our program. Then they can program our controller where we can do it remotely. But for now, I would be out there at the boxes running it manually. So, but we will have water.
Okay.
Like I said,
Yeah. Here's where my concern comes in. With us just operating the back nine. And I think I spoke to it earlier. Let's not neglect the front.
No, it was still, like I said, I've already did one fungicide application to all the greens. I've just put in my order for fungicide, everything. Matter of fact, in the morning, I will be on another application. I'll be treating the front side greens just as well as I do the back side. Like I said, there will be no neglect on the greens.
And the other thing is, if we're gonna do it this way, then we need to go ahead and get the lease. So that we can start mowing.
Yes.
the greens
Yes.
Also, because that doesn't need to get any.
Yeah, because the issue that we run into, so we have equipment set. We have one fairway more that's 2-wheel drive. So you play golf, you know how the hills are. So we're struggling with this unit. Our new ones will be 4 drives. So we'll have
2-wheel drive.
yeah.
Yeah, it will.
So we'll have 2 fairway mowers, and what I can do is dedicate one just to the front where we can set it up as high as it'll go. We can mow 2 to 3 weeks at that height, drop it down. Because if we don't have the equipment, then I got to try to take the one mower that we're using, raise it up, mow, let it down, mow the back nine, and just back and forth. Where if we have one mower dedicated, and we'll be getting a smaller rough mower, and it can be dedicated just to the front also. So we'll still be maintaining the front, but it'll just be at a slower process.
So. This is something that needs to happen soon.
Mhm.
I think we can get that lease going today. And that is our
Like it.
intention, is to get that lease going today,
Yeah.
to get the numbers, tell them we want the equipment
Absolutely.
and to put us a lease together. So
If it's the approval, as soon as I step out in the parking lot, I'll make a call. And it's just,
With the greens, speaking of this growing season, kind of inferring it's gonna stop. The greens do continue to grow,
very slowly. It's called cool season grass for a reason.
but they do grow.
Very
And
readily.
you mentioned humidity.
Mhm.
But then again, we've got a pump that controls humidity. We can go ahead and control that with the irrigation.
Mhm.
So I'm just, and in fairways, well, 80% of the golf that's played is played either on the greens or on the tee box. There's very little golf played in the fairway.
Well,
Depends on who you're.
Yeah. Most of them that play Black Mountain, I'll agree with that, but yeah, I mean, the fairway is where the,
We control those two things, and we can do that.
well, the fairways is very important. That's where that's where people, that's the target zone for when people play.
Yeah,
That's important.
exactly, but it doesn't need to be a green.
No, but that's, it has to make,
Yeah.
yeah,
It still has to be maintained.
yes.
Sure, it's gotta be maintained. I'm just stunned here at this, at the fact that that this grass can only be cut and it's gonna take 6 months to get it down back to the normal level. I just,
Think about it this way, cool season grass, this golf course normally in late March, all through April, May, this is our prime time. The place is usually beautiful this time of year. This is when the golf course is as healthy as it's gonna be all year until maybe late fall. And then comes June, the heat starts kicking in. Then comes July on a good year. We're struggling to keep things alive by that point. This year is gonna be, it's gonna be a nightmare, just as it is.
Yeah, shoot growth of bent grass will usually start shutting down at about 78 degrees at temperature.
And it would be easier if we had more staff that had
No,
knowledge of how to run irrigation, how to fix leaks when they pop up on a daily basis, how to spray. None of them have herbicide license, much less driver's license. You know, I mean, it's just,
I just wish that we would be addressing some of these things earlier.
we've been trying to address these things for years.
yep.
It's hard to hire people.
Anyway, so it's up to the board what they want to do.
So just to recap what y'all are proposing with what the golf course staff is proposing is open back nine as quickly as possible within the next few weeks we anticipate, right?
Definitely, hopefully, yes.
Lease additional mowing equipment that's available now. And I guess get on a list for the additional equipment.
Yeah, we'll just create two leases, basically. One's gonna be immediate, and then the second one will just be upon arrival. There'll just be two different lease dates, but we can do it right away.
Maintain all 18 greens. Maintain the fairways of the front nine to a point where we can safely reopen them when it cools down,
Mhm.
I guess, right? And go ahead and move forward with bridge repairs, golf cart path repairs, right? We're not selling any golf carts, right?
No.
We're not moving forward with the driving range plan.
So here's the deal with that. It's fine if you don't want to, but I will let you know that if you do not do that, we may want to raise rates because your revenues aren't going to be the same. That's of what's been budgeted and presented to you.
And then
I know everybody's talking about revenue. I know, if I'm not mistaken, the guy that had driving range on the tail end. I think his revenue was like 200-some thousand a year.
A little more than that.
Yeah.
Got to keep in mind, that's not just strictly revenue without expenses. There's a lot of expenses involved in having a driving range that, netting and all retrieval and.
Either hook one of those up to the back of your lawnmower. So,
Yeah.
About $18,000.
Yeah. I mean, I forgot our price. It's just shy of 20 grand to have everything we need.
so you would like, go ahead and do the lease equipment today.
Yeah, if the board approves, I'll make the phone call.
I don't need to vote on it at all. I can, but that's what I'm gonna do.
Well, I'd like to have a look on just a little bit. How everybody else thought about it.
we know the cost of that lease.
We don't, so we'll have to get it put together. I don't know what that is yet.
Cause you,
We're gonna do that today, absolutely.
Yeah, make a phone call, get the quote for the equipment that he has available. Go ahead and do that quote, then he can submit a quote for what would be here in October. If that's what y'all,
If we need to do, we can always, in March, Jerry said March, maybe it could be open. Doesn't mean we can't adjust our budget
Mhm.
in the middle of the year.
Yeah.
Right? So I think that's probably what the discussion will be as that moves closer. If that's the discussion that wants to be had, is, hey, we think we may be ready to open it now.
Yep, things go good, and we see things working good. Bridges are repaired, cart paths repaired, course is in good shape, it might be sooner. That's, March is realistic goal. Compared to what others might view or think, I strongly believe, like I said, talking to superintendents that's been in business, twice as long as I have, salesmen that's, been in the business and everything else, working back and forth with
In
them.
other words, you're talking to other experts.
Yes.
I'm not an expert. I'm a golfer, not an expert.
Said anything so far, and I'm not a golfer, I'm not an expert, I wasn't born here, so for what it's worth. Um, I valued so much people coming the other night and sharing their, emotion, it's a real emotional issue, the golf course, it's a historic thing, it's an emotional, there's a lot of strong ties to the golf course beyond just a golf course. And I knew a lot of the history, the factual history, I'd read things. But when people came and shared their personal connections that I didn't know of, I can tell. I mean, I didn't know Rick Harwood walked from Paget Town Road and was a caddy and did 18 holes and paid $3 to do that. I mean, I can understand why people really are attached to the golf course. And I personally have never wanted to see it closed. I mean, I was never in that mindset that we were talking about, never opening that front line. But I remember my first question when Jerry was sharing some thoughts with me about how to get this, do what we could with what we had as soon as possible. I said, well, are we going to be doing anything now that would make it impossible to open the front nine later? Because even I could figure that out, that we want the front nine open as soon as possible. But as the way I understood it, it's older, it's got harder things to fix. So, okay, what can we do with the back? You can tell I'm upset. I'm not upset, I'm just emotional about, I feel the emotion in the room. So I wanted to say that I really appreciated everybody coming and sharing their thoughts the other night, because that helped me understand what's the high intensity energy around this particular concern. And I understand that you're at the visitor center and people are coming in and they want to know about our golf course, and yay that they want to come golf here. I love that. One of the things I asked Jerry and Brent was, with real golfers, you know what I mean by that, like people that really like to play golf, would they be willing to come and play 9 holes twice until we can get it all open? And they can't walk it. I guess there's limitations. You have to keep them moving. They're going to do that, but you can speak for yourself, I'm sure, but they indicated that people that are fond of our golf course would do that in the short term if they knew that we were working toward the 18 holes. And I just felt like they had put a lot of thought into, here's what we have, and we can do our staff capacity, our time, all of it. We can get these 9 holes up and work on the other 9 and get them open too as soon as we can. But maybe it had to be more staged, gradual, which is what we're telling everybody about everything in this town, right? debris pickup or, potholes everywhere in town and, it's just hard to be patient when you know that there's something you love and you want it to get going. And, not likely to ever see me out there golfing because I'm not a golfer, but I understand that it is a revenue maker. We have a lot of tournaments that use it for that kind of thing. And, also the students that were mentioned from ONI that need places to practice, and how fortunate we are to have such a strong golf program locally. You know, I'm not, what it's worth, I'm pretty sure my opinion is the least valuable up here because I'm, you know, I graduated from high school, but, I just wanted you to know that I understand why it matters so much to me. And then, there's a lot of ties to it, 75 years. I think Joe Tyson's note said that he was born and his whole life it didn't matter to him. And, I'll never be in that position. But, however the council chooses to go on this, I just wanted you to know it wasn't because of, that I didn't understand the concerns. And I'm just kind of hoping that folks will be patient and support whatever, how this goes. And be supportive and just say we're doing the best we can. Everybody in this community is doing the best they can. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, thank you both.
Thank y'all.
Even before this, and, you know, I want to address some of the things we heard Monday night too. Everybody will give me just a second. Before we went through this process and had the hurricane, for the last 3-4 years, I've constantly heard compliments of how good the golf course looks, how well it's run, and that's a credit to you two. It's a credit to you two because you do it every day. And so when you come and you say, and I think from everything everyone said, everything that everyone said up on this board, we all understand what an asset this is to the community. We understand how important it is, and we want to preserve that. We do not, there's no one here that wants to take that from anybody. We want to enhance it, but we want to do it safely. We want to make sure that it survives not just this year, but the years going into the future. And if you who deal with it every day tell me that that's the safest bet right now is to do the back 9, slowly bring the front 9 back, and we're committed to bringing it back.
Yes.
Then I think that's what we have to do this year. But for folks that said, you know, it's a lack of efficiency on our part, it should be its own proprietary enterprise fund. It's not. We've tried that. We've tried that. And we had quite a time when we tried our management company who did not care for it like these gentlemen have cared for it. And, you know, golf is important. Recreation is important in this town. But the reason that's not an enterprise fund anymore is we don't expect it to always make money, but we expect it to be there. So even when it's not making money, you'll see this board and future boards put that investment back into that asset. That's why it's not an enterprise fund anymore. It makes it easier for us to account for it because it's not going anywhere. We're not going to devalue anyone that built this course. The Goodsons who donated the land from their dairy farm so we can build the back 9. We credit that history. We embrace it and we appreciate it. And for all of you that want to volunteer and help with it, we welcome you too. We thank you for it. We can't thank you enough. I know how passionate you are about it. I'm a terrible golfer. I mean, you can ask David Ballard, he'll tell you. He gave me one of those, you remember these, Brent, that iron you'd have that would break apart for your friends? Like I'm so terrible at that thing, it's just locked in the broke position. All right. So I get it. But everybody up here is trying. And so we have had different ideas about it. Everybody's entitled to that opinion. you know, there aren't good or bad decisions on any of these things that you do. They're just decisions to be made. I think it's the safest decision to follow your plan, open the back nine. Let's step it down as gradually as we can. If the conditions work out and we can move along faster,
Great.
by all means, let's do it.
Yeah.
But I just want to say thank you for everybody's time because I really do appreciate it. And I don't want you to think that you're being ignored. I don't want you to think that we're not hearing you. We're just trying to, like, all of us are. We're trying to make the best out of this bad situation that we can.
Well said. Said.
Do we need a motion to move forward with the lease agreement?
If you want to make it, sure, go for it.
Yeah, it's not really.
I would move to move forward with the lease agreement and for the equipment that's available, so we can keep pushing forward.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we close, I'd like to say that I will be going ahead and as a citizen, not as someone of this board, not from the authority of this board, but as a citizen, I'm going to be working with different folks to set up a golf oversight committee, kind of like what we've got in beautification, to be able to look at the golf course, have monthly meetings or bi-monthly meetings, and be able to share information and suggestions with Josh to help him in making decisions about the golf course. I tried to do this 2 years ago, Bill Christie, when I wanted the board to do it, everybody shot it down. Had we gone ahead and had a commission like that, we could have been dealing with the golf course last October, dealing with the pump, dealing with all the stuff that went wrong, and we would have had this, we would have discovered this inland marine policy that we had. I went ahead and had to put out a Freedom of Information Act in order to get that information. We could have had that lease equipment paid for and a new lease and all the new equipment here and opened up the course.
True,
Unfortunately, it was not done.
not true.
Anybody else got anything you want to say?
Honest men can disagree about that.
Well, no, honest man can disagree.
Absolutely.
And exactly, we just simply not watching what we were doing. We could have
Completely
that pump
incorrect.
rebuilt easily.
Nope.
Easily, we could have it done.
Nothing's been easy in the last.
Well, yeah, I mean, you think you make everything sound so simple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, everything's just so simple.
You ever talk to anybody that goes, they have deals with pumps? I did. And
So did Jerry.
I'm talking about making pumps. I'm talking
So did
about-
Jerry.
Yeah, rewiring. But there again. we
I'm
just-
sorry, y'all.
I appreciate everybody for attending today.
Yeah.
Anybody else got anything? If not, meeting adjourned.
Hey, Mayor, may I make one thing here?
Is that